Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest rancour in Northern Ireland over Boris Johnson and David Frost's gross dishonesty over the protocol that they negotiated and commended to the nation, and discuss why we're likely to see increasing chaos return to Northern Ireland as the game is now stacked very much against the very unionist groups who promoted this. And of course, Northern Irish politics over the last 2 decades has been predicated on the idea of a balance existing. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So David Frost met with the Stormont Executive Committee a few days ago, in which he said he was worried about the lack of consent from unionists for the Boris Johnson protocol. Another example of how Frost has adopted a tactic of attempting to pretend that this entire mess is down to matters outside of his control. It's not my fault. It'd be fine if only these people were cool with it. If he's confused as to why there is a lack of consent for the protocol from unionists, perhaps it might have something to do with the following facts. Firstly, David Frost and Boris Johnson spent the last year promising that none of the consequences written down in the withdrawal agreement pertaining to a trade barrier between Britain and Northern Ireland would ever come to pass. They just denied it. People would say, but it says here. No. Boris Johnson even told people that if they were ever issued with a customs form, they should just throw it in the bin. Which is an odd statement even at the time, given that the only place such a form could originate from would be Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. The Irish sea border is inside the UK, and so UK authorities manage both sides of it. Secondly, David Frost has been talking to unionist groups for months, telling them that the checks are completely unnecessary, that it's just the EU being difficult. So of course people who don't fact check will therefore think that the checks are political, as opposed to the automatic application of a treaty that was not only freely entered into by both Frost and Johnson, but sold to the nation, including Northern Ireland, as a great deal. In fact, Northern Ireland were told that they'd get the best of both worlds with it. In other words, far from trying to explain that this is the best way to manage Brexit if we had to insist on leaving the EU and not aligning customs arrangements, they have tried to suggest that the whole thing could just be dropped and there would be no issues. There would, of course, be huge issues. If we don't apply checks on EU goods coming into Britain, well, that's our affair. Actually, it's not entirely our affair. At some point, other countries will want to insist that their exports aren't checked either. World Trade Organization rules do not allow for a competitive advantage to be given to a country or trading bloc without a formal agreement. We have no formal agreement for allowing EU goods into Britain unchecked. So at the moment, we're essentially operating outside of international law. Boris Johnson may or may not be willing to risk the consequences of that. After all, it's the country that would suffer, not him. But the EU are not going to piss off the world and act outside of the law after working so hard to build up such a massive trade area. And then Frost was asked if his deal was so shoddy, why did he negotiate it? Frost responded with the ignorance defence again. He said that the implementation was not what he thought he'd agreed. What he didn't do, and I'm not sure if he was asked, I saw reports of this, not the actual thing, was to give an example of any implementation of the protocol that was unexpected. Because that's what I would say. I would say, give me a concrete example of something that's been implemented that you don't think is in the legal text. Because there won't be anything. The second he tries to give an example, someone can point to the treaty and go, look, it's there, look. Do you see that bit there that you negotiated? There it is. Nobody has been able to give an actual example of any aspect of the protocol that isn't working, that isn't in the legal text. There is a reason for this. There isn't one. An MLA from Sinn Féin then made clear that Frost knew exactly what the protocol was, that the people of Northern Ireland rejected Brexit, that the majority of parties in Northern Ireland rejected Brexit, but supported the protocol, and then finished with a killer line. No pun intended. She says that the next time Frost honours an agreement in full, it will be his first. Now, of course, Sinn Féin are having a very easy time of things right now, politically speaking. It's always easy for any political party when its interests align with the general population, especially if there's a very genuine antagonist to attack. Northern Ireland voted against Brexit, fact. Now, I do not know whether Sinn Féin are secretly pleased with Brexit or not, despite their public opposition to it. It's a little bit like the Conservatives pursuing a path that will likely destroy the United Kingdom. Publicly, of course, the Tories have to be against this. They are the Conservative and Unionist Party, to give them their full name. But they would have a much easier time remaining in power if neither Northern Ireland nor Scotland were involved in Westminster elections. Might be a similar thing with Sinn Féin, I don't know. But the consequences of the particular Brexit path that Boris Johnson chose and David Frost negotiated is one that means trade barriers between Northern Ireland and Britain that do not exist between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Now, that's not to say there aren't trade barriers at all inside Ireland. Obviously, the protocol is very much about physical goods. For services, it's really the other way around. But it's that physicality of the goods that is politically more powerful. It's why Republicans in general, including Sinn Féin, can just be patient. You know, Brexit is putting incredible strain on Northern Ireland's place in the UK. They don't need to resort to any dirty tactics. They simply need to point out truths, and that is damaging enough for their opponents. It's unionists that are trying to skate uphill right now. If the divergence of customs arrangements between Britain and Northern Ireland is a force that splits the two apart, there's really nothing that unionist groups can do about it. And yet unionist groups have to represent unionists and do something about it. This is the difficulty. You know, the new leader of the DUP has called on Frost to simply drop the protocol altogether. This cannot happen. It's quite illegal. And I don't just mean internationally. It's against British law. And if they did it, a British court would be asked to get involved. It's a non-starter of an idea. And what conclusion do you draw if someone, in seeking to solve a problem, asks for an impossible solution? It means one of two things. Either they are stupid or they have no idea how to solve the problem, but they know that they have a duty to do something. And it's really the latter that is play here. As we get ready for the start of the always divisive marching season, some unionist groups decided to adopt another ill-advised solution. A huge bonfire of wooden pallets was erected. I mean, we have a bit of a shortage of pallets, and you're supposed to be protesting against trade barriers. This is not unlike protesting against hunger by dumping a load of food in the sea. But it was built anyway. Irish and EU flags placed on top, you know, to remind people what they were protesting against, and then they set fire to it. This was a big old stack of wooden pallets, individual wooden pallets, and they set fire to it. It's quite a tall structure with a base that was significantly smaller than the height. Now, I understand how fire enforcers work to a reasonable degree. I'm not entirely sure those assembled did. They can't all believe in the flat 6,000-year-old Earth, can they? Anyway, the whole fiery structure predictably toppled over and people ran for their lives. And I don't want to describe this as a Republicans against unionists thing. I mean, I'm a unionist of sorts myself. Not necessarily in the context of Northern Ireland as such. You know, just in general. The bottom line is that the EU has been the most successful peace project in history. European powers were fighting each other on an almost constant basis throughout modern history. Occasionally, one of the powers would take a breather, they'd sit it out, and someone else would get involved. Centuries, millennia even. And now it's stopped. Not saying there's not been conflict in Europe, but there hasn't been amongst the nations who joined the Union. But you know, the second best peace project around? The United Kingdom. I know we didn't cause peace around the world in general. But before the various unions of the United Kingdom, we used to knock the crap out of each other on a regular basis as well. There was, for centuries, Britain or England, Scotland, wherever, were never, ever going to become a major player in Europe. We were never taken seriously. We didn't have to be taken seriously. Because the second the Romans left, we were busy invading each other. So the UK has been a pretty good peace project. Though there was a bit of trouble a few decades after it began, of course. But if the pursuit of peace is to be a virtue, I do not understand how people can be so opposed to union. Seems to me it's an essential tool for peace. Where you don't have a union between nations, you have the potential for conflict. And the reverse is true. If you want to foster conflict between peoples, you break up any union that exists between them. No surprise at all that Putin promotes the breakup of both the EU and the UK. But Northern Ireland is different. Now that we've left the EU, a union has been broken. The Good Friday Agreement basically meant that both sides sort of got what they wanted. Both unions could sort of be true at the same time. If you squinted your eyes to a very rough approximation, it worked in practical terms. Now, yes, of course, there were both unionists and Republicans for whom it wasn't quite good enough, but it satisfied the majority. Now that's gone. Now a choice has to be made. Not now exactly, at some point. And unionists, of course, do not like the way that choice is likely to go when the time comes. And therein lies the problem. You talk to unionists, and I'm not talking about the DUP, I'm talking about very reasonable unionists. We'll look at the situation now and go, well, so what can we do to re-establish that balance? Because the balance has been thrown out. How do you re-establish the balance? And the answer is there isn't any real way. The only way would be for Britain to realign with the EU. But you know that this is politically impossible in Britain right now. So what can you do? It's nothing. And therein lies the pursuit of impossible solutions, because what else is there? But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.